Ya 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 ya. Ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da. Ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da. Ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da. Ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da. Ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da. Ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's nice to see you on this muggy pre-Pesach morning. Maybe you were up early getting your matzo balls going, or if you're like me, forgot to make meringues yesterday, so got up early to try to get them in the oven so they could dry out in the mild oven for many, many hours. We'll see how they turn out. I'll let you know next week. But we're here still to celebrate Shabbat before the sun sets and Chag begins. I invite you to turn to page 170. There should be a link in the chat if you're with us here on Zoom, or there will be momentarily. There it is. With actually, Bob, you sent that just to me, not to everybody. So you got to send that to everybody. There we go. And if you're with us on Facebook, it should be in the comments, and on live stream, it's there as always, right below the screen. But we begin with this opening meditation on page 170. May my life be one link in a chain of goodness as I say the prayers of my ancestors. Help me to recall their devotion and faithfulness, their joy and suffering, which are in every word. Holiness is my heritage. May I be worthy of it. May our tradition live in me and pass for me to generations I shall never know, enriched by the truth that I have found and the good deeds I have done. So may I fulfill my task on earth and receive my blessing. And when the service ends and the prayers have ceased, help me to bring their spirit into the world in which I live. May I love God above all and my neighbor as myself, and be a living witness to the truth that never changes. We turn to page 172 as we welcome Shabbat with song Ma Tovu.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel.
On the next page, 173, we give prayers and blessings to God for the gift of our bodies, sharing in the English before Cantor leads us in our prayer for our souls. Join with me in the English. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware. We would lack the strength to sustain life before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar, umafli la'asot. Page 174, Elohai Neshama.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi tehorai, Ata virata, Ata itzarta, Ata nefachta bi, Ve'ata mishamera, Mishamra b'kirbi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi tehorai.
Elu Devarim She'ein Lehem Shi'or. On page 180, we recite these words from Pirkei Avot, from the Talmud, reminding ourselves of our obligation to our friends and family, but also to our greater community, maintaining the infrastructure that keeps us connected and whole. Join with me. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We turn all the way now to page 194 for the Chatzi Kaddish. I invite you to rise if you're able and remain standing through the Shema.
Yitkadash Shemei Rabba, Amen. Be'amad yivrach chirutei, ve'amnich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yamechon v'chayirech Beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zeman kariv, v'yimeru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba mevorach, le'olam olamei amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalal, shemei kudesha brichu, le'elam min kol bechata v'shrata, tush bechata v'nachemata, damiron be'alema, v'yimeru, Amen. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
On page 195, we share in Yotzer Or, praising God for the gift of creation. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Yotzer Or Uvarei Choshech Osei Shalom Uvarei Atakol, Hameir La'aretz V'Ladarim Aleha Berachamim, Uv Tuvo Mechadesh Bechol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh Bereshit, Ma Rabu Ma'asecha Adonai, Kulam Bechokma Asita, Mal'ah Ha'aretz Kin Yanecha, Tit Barach Adonai Eloheinu, Al Shevach Ma'aseh Yadecha, Ve'al Me'orei Or She'asita Yipa'arucha Selah, Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir V'nizkech Ulanu Mehera Le'oro, Baruch Ata Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot. On page 199, we continue. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear, in every land and every age. Your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways, and yet, O God, you are one unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully, we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel. And joyfully, we remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you and find purpose. May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds and their passion for righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch Ata Adonai habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. Please join me on page 201 with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher nochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
Amet. On the bottom of page 203, we read together. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, for soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה, שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדרך נאומך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We continue now with the Amidah, beginning on page 205. If you are able, I invite you to please rise.
Adonai sefata tiftach ufi agi teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, Elyon, Komel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומותיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו Avinu Malkeinu, Moshienu vehu Yashmienu, Berachamav le'nei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, le'dor v'ador. Hallelujah. Le'dor v'ador nagid kolecha, ulenetzach netzachim kedushatecha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. We continue at the top of page 211 as we sing Yismechu, rejoicing in Shabbat.
Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei onek Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei onek Shabbat. Mekadosh shevi Shabbat, kulam yisbeu v'yitangu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei onek Shabbat. V'hashvi Rasita bo v'kidashto Shabbat, chemdat yamim, oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei onek Shabbat. Zecher lemase v'reshit Shabbat, zecher lemase v'reshit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei onek Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei onek Shabbat.
We continue reading together on page 212. On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us. May our offerings be acceptable to you. We praise you, Adonai, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha be'ira na'avod. For our hoda'ah this morning, I offer the translation of the prayer. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Please take a moment now for your own silent prayers. Aseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, imeru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Well, we're going to look at this week's Torah portion, Sav, for a little bit, and then we're thrilled that Corey Palmer is going to be our Ba'al Kriya, our guest reader of Torah this Shabbat. I just want to apologize ahead of time. There was a political canvasser that came to my door with a ginormous dog, and my very little dog got extremely excited, and now he's still looking for that other dog. So he was sitting here so quietly next to me, and now he's going bonkers. So that's, hey, if you didn't hear already, this is our last Shabbat from home. We will be back in the sanctuary next week with a full Torah service, and you'll be able to gather around us and look at the Torah scroll. So no more dogs after today. There we go. All right. So this week's Torah portion, Sav, continues the discussion of not only the sacrifices, but also we also heard about the different items that the high priests are going to wear, the vestments, so to speak. And this section of text at the beginning of Tzav focuses not only on that, but a really peculiar thing about what the priests are supposed to wear or not when they take the ashes away from the Ner Tamid. Or basically, what are they supposed to wear when they take out the trash? So I'm going to have Anna read the English while I get someone to take my dog away, and then we'll look at some commentaries.
I have a lawnmower, but no dog. So if you can hear me. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command Aaron and his sons thus. This is the ritual of the burnt offering. The burnt offering itself shall remain where it is burned upon the altar all night until morning, while the fire on the altar is kept going on it. The priest shall dress in linen raiment with linen breeches next to his body, and he shall take up the ashes to which the fire has reduced the burnt offering on the altar and place them beside the altar. He shall then take off his vestments and put on other vestments and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning, not to go out. Every morning the priest shall feed wood to it, lay out the burnt offering on it, and turn into smoke the fat parts of the offerings of well-being. A perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out.
Thank you, Anna. So personally, I find the description of all the vestments of the priest to be really fascinating, both from a thinking about them, what they represent physically, but also metaphorically. Bob, I'm going to need you to you can leave the screen up the whole time. Perfect. Okay, great. So, but today, I think I'd like to focus on this idea about from verse 4, he'll take off the vestments and then put on other vestments. And just like we learn sometimes about the vestments, that they're there not just to show the people the power and specialness of the priest, but also to remind the priests themselves of their obligations. I think that this particular verse helps us think about that as well, but in a different way. Okay, so we're going to look at a commentary by Nechama Leibowitz. Thank you, Bob. And she puts forth the question that we want to consider today. Michael Epstein, will you read the Nechama Leibowitz for us?
Yes. Surely the obligatory taking up of the ashes best effected with changed clothes is of little more than pragmatic concern. The rabbis here therefore sought the inner meaning and moral lesson involved. We have here two apparently contradictory instructions. On the one hand, the Torah insists on wearing of holy garments for the ordinary, everyday task of removing the ashes from the altar. On the other hand, it prescribes or counsels the completion of that task, the taking of the ashes outside the camp in inferior garments.
Thank you. So Leibowitz likes to post, nuanced questions for us to consider. So she starts by saying, why is this even in the Torah? We all know that when you handle trash, right, or say you're frying something, you put on an apron or you don't wear your best clothes. It would be obvious that the priest would take off all their special stuff right before they would take out the ashes. Ashes are dirty. I mean, not that the entire thing of slaughtering and sacrificing animals wouldn't be dirty and messy too, right? But so she's saying there's got to be a greater reason as to why this detail is shared in verse 4. And she's going to show us two different arguments, or she says there are two different arguments the rabbis put forth. We'll look at both of them. One is to say, no, you need to wear holy garments even for the most ordinary of tasks, and we'll think about why. And the other is to say, no, the garments were supposed to be inferior. So we'll look and try to figure out why. All right, our next comment, I think, is by Rashi. Nope, it's by Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher. Jerry, will you read the Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher for us?
We see that even for the menial task of lifting the ashes, the Torah commands the Kohen to wear gracefully holy garments. The lesson to be learned from this is that all ritual or religious assignments should be carried out in a worthy and decorous manner, and that we should humble ourselves for the glory of God to perform exacting tasks.
Okay, so what is Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher saying? What are they supposed to be wearing and why? We're gonna be back and forth. No, leave it on the Rabbeinu. Thank you. Okay. Why do you think? What do you think he's saying? What's the purpose of this? I'm going to be interactive today, everyone. So great, thank you, Corey. Right. Even though it seems like a menial task, taking out the trash, it's actually for a very holy purpose. And the idea of wearing garments, whether they're the same garments or different, but still holy garments, is there to remind us that everything the priests do, or I think by extension, everything that we do in our life has the potential for holiness in it, right? And we should treat every act we do with respect. Thank you. Next comment. Great, Rashi. Rashi sees it in a different kind of way. Andrew, will you read the Rashi for us?
Sure. And he shall put off his garments. This is not obligatory, but a solitary habit to avoid soiling his ritual garments when removing the residual ashes. The servant should not wait upon his master in his kitchen clothes, therefore, and put on other garments, inferior ones.
Great. So Rashi's taking the opposite view, right? Which is like, your best clothes are meant for good things. Like I can remember as like a little kid, don't wear your nice dress when you're going to run outside to play, right? If you're going to go play in the park, go put on your play clothes. Don't wear your fancy clothes. So Rashi's saying, look, the servant toils in the kitchen, but before they serve the food, they put on a fresh apron, right? Or a special uniform. Therefore, when you're doing the dirty work, even though it's necessary, you should put on inferior clothes. Now, note Rashi's not saying that the clothes that you put on are not holy. He's just saying that they're not the same clothes as the ones they would have worn to do the actual actual sacrifices. Great. Okay, our next comment is from Rabbeinu Bachya ibn Pakuda, not to be confused with Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher. Okay, and who's going to read for me? Corey, will you read?
And he shall put off his linen garments and put on other garments and carry forth the ashes without, in order to humble himself and remove the haughtiness from his heart. Significantly, it is in the inner sanctuary that the high priest faces his master in the most sumptuous attire. However, when exposed to the throngs, he dresses more simply and performs menial tasks so as to erase all pride from his heart.
So I think this is like a great contradistinction to the first Rabbeinu Bachya, right? That first Rabbeinu Bachya said, everything you do is holy, right? And so no matter what, you should be, whether you're actually wearing holy clothes, you should have in mind the weight of those clothes and your responsibility. Ibn Pakuda is actually saying similar but different, which is just because you have those fancy vestments, just because you get to go in the Holy of Holies, you shouldn't think that you, let's just say Aaron, are specifically holy. It's just that you, when you are being the priest, are fulfilling that holy role, right? So you shouldn't put on airs. So when you're out and about, when people see you not in your official capacity of offering sacrifices, you shouldn't be wearing those holy vestments, right? Because you need to not get overwhelmed with self-importance, or as it says here, you need to erase all pride from your heart. Okay, I think we've got one more commentary. We do. So Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, he, I think, does a good job of connecting this to us. John, do you want to, where'd John go? Is he still here? Do you want to read the Hirsch for us? We need you to unmute though. All right, next time, Dimitri.
Yes, the clearing away of the ashes signifies that each new day renews our commitment to comply with all that is incumbent upon us, and he shall carry forth the ashes. The relics of the previous day's ritual must be removed before the new day's ritual can begin in a clear and renovated place. This explains the insistence of effecting the removal of the ashes in worn out and old clothes. One must not regale oneself in pomp for that which belongs to the past. It is superseded by the present mitzvah that each day bids us observe.
So I think Hirsch's take is a really, and we can take off the screen share now. Thank you, Bob. I think that Hirsch's comment is really interesting, which is, about being in the moment and also not thinking about your past actions being enough to propel you forward into the present, right? Like just because you did something holy and good yesterday doesn't mean that that's like an aura of holiness that's going to hold you, and then you can just not be thinking about it and attendant to your responsibilities as you go forth, right? So from Hirsch's perspective, okay, you had the vestments on, you did that sacrifice, you're done, right? Like that sacrifice was just for that moment. It doesn't hold on. And you need to make a separation between that, and taking out the trash is a way to like clean the slate and start over. And then you'll don those vestments again. And when you do that, you're going to try to put on the intentions that are required of you for those holy acts. So I think, it reminds me of Parshat Kedoshim, where we have all these responsibilities like in the holiness code that they're never over, right? Just because you're kind to a stranger once doesn't mean then like you're good and you can be rude to strangers after that. You have to constantly be reminding yourself of these tasks that are never ending and also can sometimes feel quite weighty, right? So for Hirsch, taking off the garments when you're done with the special task and bringing yourself back down to zero before you start over again is a way to remind himself, I guess, and all of us that every day when we wake up, we have to think about our obligations to our family, our friends, to the world around us. We might not have the atara and all the heavy gold and accoutrement, the robes, the raiments, right, that the priests have, but we still have a way to robe ourselves in holy intention and to commit ourselves to fulfilling our obligations to God and our community. Tzav. Like I said last Shabbat, we're going to try to find the holy uplift in all of Leviticus, we'll keep trying, right, Rabbi Yergin? We're gonna find good stuff every week in this entire book of Torah, because it does call us to higher awareness of the messiness of life and finding holiness in all of it. All right, so now, Corey Palmer, you're gonna share this text with us. Are you gonna share the blessings, or Corey, Kimcha Berlin, will you chant the blessings for us?
Yes, page 250. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach, Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, ve'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Tzav et Aharon ve'et banav lemor, Zot Torat ha'olah hi ha'olah al mokta al hamizbeach kol halayla ad haboker ve'esh hamizbeach tukad bo belavash hakohen midovad umichnaseva Yilbash al bisaro veherim et hadeshen asher tochal ha'esh et ha'olah al hamizbeach vesamo eitzel hamizbeach ufashat et bigadav belavash bigadim acherim behotzi et hadeshen el michutz lamachane el makom tahor beha'esh al hamizbeach tukad bo lo tichbe uvi'er alecha hakohen eitzim baboker ve'arak aleha ha'olah vehiktir alecha chalvei hashlamim esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbe.
Yasher Koach. Blessing after on page 250. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We now, with these words of Torah on our lips, we turn now to the words of Mishaberach, which bring healing to all of those in need of healing of mind, body, and spirit. We think of those in our community whose names will be on our screen shortly, and those who are in our hearts each and every day. As we think of them, we take a moment. Mishaberach can be found on page 253.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. We continue now with the concluding portion of our worship. Aleinu can be found on page 283. If you are able, I invite you to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer bereshit, shehu sam chelkenu liyached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lamlich malchuto, va'anachnu koreim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech ha'kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
You may be seated. As we turn to page 289 for our memorial meditation, we note with sadness the death of Dr. Elliot Wesser, husband of Marcia Gorin Wesser, father of Stephen Wesser, and stepfather of Sarah Salone and Robert Ellman, and Leah Salone and David Stream, grandfather of Marcus Stream, Sophie Ellman, and Kayla Eden Stream, and numerous cousins. A private burial will be held at the Temple High Cemetery within Mission Park North on Monday, March 29th. A celebration of his life will be held at a later date via Zoom, and there will be 2 Shiva Minyanim, which details will come out about that today. Page 289. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Our thoughts turn now to those in our community who have died at this time in years past. As we mark their yard sites, we remember them. Jack Alter, Leora Timon Arbetter, Julian Aronson, Jefferson Bell, Maurice Braha, June Britton, Bob Brook, Fanny Brooks, Charles Chuck Cook, Ernestine Cooper, Margaret Herman Cooper, Dr. Bernard Crane, Hector Curiel, Harold Danielson, Frank Lipper Dover, Mary Edwards, Dr. Carlos Eric, Jason M. Heine Felder, Frederica Feldman, Bobby Felker, Dina Fisher, Faye Betty Forlan, Selma Friedman, Milton Arthur Frost Jr., Marcus Gorin, Darlene Gregory, Marjorie Pepler Halstead, Julius Hines, Michael Edwin Kahn, Miriam Rabinowitz Kalmans, Miriam Kalmans, Dorothy Kaufman, Walter Koenig, Ida Kovacs, Fanny Loeb Creeder, Quentin Lamb, Lida Vexler Landy, Jean Leff, Hortense Horty Lyman Fine, Jean Lang Matthews, Gerald Mazur, Carol McBride, Darren Mensch, George Newmark, Jeff D. Nordhaus, Martine Roseland, Meyer Rosenman, Forrest Paul Rosette, Anna Rubenstein, Sherry Sherman, Arnold Wagner, Dorothy Wesser, and Max Yaffe. We also think of those who died this past month, whose families are in a mourning period of Shloshim. Remember Dorothy Miller, Alan Brightman, and Edward H. Robinson. We also think of two who died this past week, whose families are in a mourning period of Shiva. Remember Gerald Hurst, grandfather of Merrill and Neely Kasanoff, and Evan Manuel Hirsch, father of Darren and Sarah Hirsch, Mark and Jennifer Hirsch, Carolyn and Chris Cohnhorst, and grandfather of Lauren and Emily Hirsch, David and Sam Hirsch, Robin and Rachel Cohnhurst. With all of these names and those which are in our hearts each and every day, we join together as one community as we rise on page 294 for Kaddish Yatom. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach v'yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'richu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechamata, ta'amiran ve'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'imromav, hu ya'asei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, amen. You may be seated.
Our closing song is SINI on page 339. Just wanted to make sure everyone, some people came late, just to remind you all, you're going to get an email on Monday, but that we are returning to in-person worship next Friday. We'll be following all the CDC guidance on separation and social distancing. Everyone will take their temperature. If you're not feeling well, please don't come. If you have been vaccinated, yes, great. If you are older and not vaccinated, or maybe you're not, we're hoping people will be responsible, but we're also super excited to be able to see people in person. So, SINI, page 339.
Shamayim ba'aretz, Ezri me'im Adonai. Oseh shamayim ba'aretz, Esainai el harim. Me'ayin yavo Ezri, Esainai el harim. Me'ayin yavo Ezri.
Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, is this in Pesach?
Shabbat
Yeah.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Great job, Corey. Yeshua.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, hi, Anna. Nice to see you. Chag Sameach. Well, have a good day. This concludes our service.